What's up, everyone? Today is June 6th of 2023. Today I'm going to talk about the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam in Ukraine, which some news outlets are calling the most devastating development in the Russo-Ukrainian war since Russia's invasion back in February of 2022. Today's date, June 6th, is D-Day, which is one of the most significant anniversaries in the history of warfare. Of course, D-Day referring to the Normandy landings, an extremely important battle in World War II, where the United States and its allies stormed the shores of France and overwhelmed German forces, which helped lead them to a victory a year later. So in this video, we're going to talk about why D-Day and the 79th anniversary of D-Day was chosen for this event. Of course, the Russians blaming the Ukrainians blaming the Russians. Nothing new in this battle, which has many theatrical developments, beginning with the president of Ukraine, whose background is actually theater. So, once again, in today's video, we'll discuss why the 79th anniversary of D-Day is so significant. If you're new to this channel, we focus on numerology with a strong emphasis on the language of Gematria. On the right side of your screen, you'll see the standard English form of Gematria. This is a denary system, which numbers the alphabet 1 through 9, 10 through 90, and then 100 through 800. Using this simple form of English Gematria, the phrase D-Day sums to 709. Now, in numerology, zeros are often ignored, meaning this represents the number 79. And today's date, the destruction of this dam over in Ukraine, falls exactly 79 years after D-Day. This is a fact that's even been highlighted on Fox News, among other mainstream news outlets today. Here we're talking about the Russo-Ukrainian War, which has a reduction value of 79. The reduction, or Pythagorean form of Gematria, reduces every double-digit number in the alphabetic order down to a single digit prior to adding it to the equation. So we're just using the simple rules of numerology. So the letter R, for instance, the 18th letter in the alphabet, 1 plus 8 is 9, which is the new value of R in reduction. The dam destroyed was called the Kakhovka Dam, which is 790. And this form of Gematria is called Latin. I actually consider this to be the most significant outside of the base 4 ciphers. But there you have Kakhovka, 790. 79 also represented in the ordinal value of Ukraine, which was the victim of today's events. When you look at the Normandy landings, you find that the Allies attacked 5 different beaches. And we'll talk about a couple of these, starting with the ones that were stormed by the Canadian and British forces. And one of those beaches is called Gold Beach. Now, this stands out because gold on the periodic table of elements is the 79th element. The other beach stormed by the British and Canadians was called Juno Beach. And notice how Juno Beach also has this value of 79. The dam that was destroyed is in the oblast of Kherson, Ukraine, which sums to 79 with the S exception. Nova Kakhovka, Kherson, Ukraine, the full name of the city, the oblast, and the nation, even sums to the 79th prime number. And this all ties into the age of Vladimir Putin. If you include the end date, on today's date, you'll see that Vladimir Putin begins the 9th month of his 70th year. Now, we'll talk about this 78 in a second, but maybe that's a little bit of a stretch, right? He's beginning the 9th month after turning 70, kind of like a 79. But here's what's really wild. If you instead measure from today's date to Putin's 79th birthday, you get 435 weeks. And this is significant because on the date of the Normandy landings, this was exactly 435 weeks before the birth of Vladimir Putin. So once again, we're talking all about these 79s, today being exactly 79 years after D-Day. Well, today is 435 weeks before Putin's 79th birthday, and Putin was born exactly 435 weeks after D-Day. So this is an example of the significant numerical alignments that occur in major news stories virtually every single day. Now, what about the other president in this story? Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian actor turned president during this significant time of war for the nation. Well, consider how World War II is considered to be a turning point, or I'm sorry, Normandy was considered a turning point of World War II. And in the alphabetic order, World War II and the city of Nova Kakhovka, where today's incident occurred, both have ordinal gematria of 132. And we'll talk about how the number 666 is highly significant to today as well in a little bit. Zelensky was born 1,320 weeks after Vladimir Putin. And today, which is the anniversary of D-Day, also falls 132 days after Zelensky's birthday. Zelensky was born in the year 78. And this brings us back to Putin's age on today's date. He turns exactly 70 years and 8 months if you include the end date. We call this a span in horology. Well, the number 78 is the Latin value of Normandy, France, which is once again the scene of D-Day. Furthermore, today has primary numerology of 55 connecting to the reverse value of Putin. 6 plus 6 plus 20 plus 23 summing to 55, which is the reverse ordinal sum of the name Putin. Down in the description below, you'll see a link to my last video on this war, where I talked about this Kremlin explosion where there was a drone flying overhead, an event that Russia blamed on both the United States and Ukraine at various points. And I thought it was interesting that that incident fell 34 days before today's events on the anniversary of D-Day. And in ordinal, D-Day equals 34. But back to the name Putin. Now, I mentioned the 55, which is important to today's date with 55 numerology. But notice how Putin has the same Latin gematria, 409, as D-Day. Also 409. In numerology, prime numbers are very significant. Now, 409 is the 80th prime number, divisible only by 1 and itself. And not only does Putin equal the 80th prime number, but it also equals 80 in ordinal. The dam that was destroyed today was called the Kakhovka Dam, and Kakhovka also equals 80 in ordinal. 80 is also the reverse reduction value of Operation Neptune, which was the code name of the Normandy landings back in 1944. So D-Day on June 6th, just like today's date, June 6th falls under the astrological sign of Gemini, and Gemini is ruled by the planet Mercury. Earlier, we looked at how gold is the 79th element on the table. Gold Beach, one of 5 invaded on Normandy, or on D-Day. Well, the next element on the periodic table is Mercury. This is the 80th element connecting to the name Putin, and Operation Neptune. Kakhovka, all 80. Now, in Roman mythology, Mercury is the god of travelers. And on D-Day, the troops had to travel over seas to get to the beach. And the god of the sea is Neptune, which is probably why this operation was called Operation Neptune, right? Men traveling over the sea. So if you measure from D-Day to today's date, notice how today falls exactly 328 mercurial years after D-Day. Now, a mercurial year is one orbit of the planet Mercury around the sun. This is about 88 days. And today is 328 mercurial orbits exactly after D-Day. Well, why is that interesting? Well, consider how the beach, one of the beaches that had the most troops at it was Utah Beach, and Utah Beach sums to 328. And think about, there was actually more troops at Omaha Beach, but Utah Beach is the one that connects to Vladimir Putin in Gematria. Vladimir Putin's 69, just like Utah Beach. Putin was 69 years old when he invaded Ukraine. But also 33 and 48, like the Sumerian values of Putin and Kakhovka. So let's dive a little bit more into this riddle with Neptune. First of all, the name Putin also has reverse reduction gematria of 28. And today, June 6th, is the date that leaves 208 days on the calendar. 208 is the ordinal value of Operation Neptune, which was also on the 208th day of the year. In the reverse order, Operation Neptune equals 224. And this reminds us of the date that Russia originally invaded Ukraine last year, February 24th, or 224. Now, the planet Neptune takes approximately 165 years to orbit the sun. 165 is the Sumerian value of 666. You see, we get a 1650. And this Sumerian cipher multiplies the alphabetic order by 6. So you'll see here we start with 6, and you just add 6 for every letter, all the way through Z. So we get this 165, 666, connecting to Neptune and its orbital period. Well, think about how D-Day, June 6th, is written 6/6. Today's disaster in Nova Kakhovka, which equals 66. And today is a span of 66 weeks and 6 days after the invasion began in February of last year. This number is also found in the age of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who was 2,366 weeks and 6 days old. Again, Normandy, the turning point of World War II, which sums to 60 and 66. I may be oversimplifying it by calling it the turning point. Of course, there were a lot of significant battles. But nonetheless, an event that many Americans I know identify with the war. And I just want to illustrate here how the site of this blast has a lot of overlap with the number 666 when spelled out. Nova, Kakhovka, Kherson Oblast, even 2127, like 666. And when we look at Normandy, right, notice how there were 156,000 soldiers. Well, this 156 is pretty important. Remember, this cipher that multiplies ordinal by 6 ends with 156. In ordinal, when you write out 666, you get a sum of 156. Kherson also sums to 90 and 99, an upside-down 666. This was the oblast where Kakhovka sits. 666, also the 36th triangular number, which is Kherson in both reduction methods. Kherson also summing to 283 in Latin. 666, 2083 in that same method. And think about how Vladimir Putin's full name, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, has these same values as 603 score and 6, 313, and 389. The same numbers found in Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, 313 and 389. You'll also notice that 603 score and 6, the biblical number of the beast, also sums to 133 in reduction. Well, if you measure from the date that Vladimir Putin became the president of Russia for the second time, May 7th of 2012, to today's date, we get exactly 133 months. And not only do we get that number with 666, but the word president is also 133 in reverse. So he's been the president for 133 months. It all overlaps a little bit too well, doesn't it? Finally, Neptune is also on the periodic table. The 93rd element is Neptunium. Nova Kakhovka, Kherson Oblast, the site of today's destruction, sums to 93 in reduction. I also want to point out how Normandy, France. We looked at the 78 earlier. Because once again, today, Vladimir Putin is 70 years, 8 months old. But in ordinal, Normandy, France is 151. This is the 36th prime number. And 36 brings us back to this 666. Kherson, 36 in both reduction methods. All right, so I think that'll do it for this. Just remember, whenever you're talking about 666, in reference to the number of the beast code, 66 is essentially shorthand for 666. Not only does number of the beast equal 66, but number of a man, as it's referred to in that verse of the Bible, 66. The book of Revelation, where that verse is, has matching gematria with 66. And Revelation is the 66th book of the Bible. Here is wisdom, is how that starts. Here is wisdom equals 66. There's one more 66 in that verse, but I think you guys get the point. That'll do it for this video. For everyone who would like to support the work, please check the links in the description. Otherwise, that'll do it, and we'll talk to you next time. Peace, love, and God bless. See ya.